Alright guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to have an introduction to using the shell or the terminal and your Linux distribution. Alright, so on my desktop, I actually have a shortcut to the terminal, but maybe you don't on yours, so you can easily search for it. It's usually going to be called terminal on almost every distribution of Linux. So let's just search for that. And to make this bigger and easier to see, I'm going to enlarge it. And I did that just holding Control, Shift, and pushing the plus key. All right, so this is the shell. This is essentially the core of the operating system. This is where everything's happening essentially in the background. For example, if you did not install the graphical user interface on your distribution of Linux, you would only have access to the terminal. So I would like to go over some of the basic commands and how you can move around the file system here. So a very important command is called ls, and ls basically allows you to list files, list directories, list hidden files. And the cool thing about all the commands in Linux, they all have a very detailed help page. Oops, sorry. And this displays the full documentation for a command. Also, what I just did there to make everything disappear, I typed clear, and that will go ahead and clear out your window for you. So that's something you'll probably find yourself using a lot. And what I wanted to say is, an extremely important command that you'll use in the shell is called man. It's short for manual. And almost every application that you can run from the shell will have a manual or a man page where you can read through the full documentation and learn how to use it. For example, if we were to do man ls, you see it gives us the full name and what it does, list directory contents, a description, list information about the files, the current directory by default, sort entries alphabetically, if none of the, and these are the switches you can use, or arguments to the command, or sort is specified. And it tells you what the mandatory arguments that you can use in the short options as well. For example, so we could do an ls-a or -all, and it'll allow us to see hidden files. And it's worth mentioning in Linux and Unix, hidden files have a name that is appended with the, prepended with period. So we can even create some of those. So for another command that you'll find yourself using a lot is mkdir, and this basically makes a directory. So we'll make a directory here called example. And also something that's very cool about the terminal here on Linux, you can push up on your keyboard to go to your last command, and you can keep pushing up and you'll scroll through your history of commands, and you can push down to go the other direction. So let's go ahead and change directories to that example directory, and we'll use the command called cd. It's short for change directory. Here we are. So now we're in our new directory that should have no files in it. We'll verify that with the ls command. And another extremely common command you'll find yourself using when you're moving around the shell and you're dealing with files and directories is it's called pwd, and that shows your standard path. And as you can see, we're in /home/cam/example. So let's go ahead and create a hidden file. And as I said, in Linux, all hidden files start with a period. And a command we can use to create an empty text file is called touch. So we'll do touch test file 1, and then we'll create another file that is not hidden called test file 2, and another test file called test file 3. Now if we use ls, notice how we can only see test file 2 and test file 3. That's because test file 1 is hidden. And so if we are to use ls with the argument of a, like so, it will show us the test file 1, the hidden file. And then it's worth mentioning, you see these 2 dots. This means the directory higher than the current working directory, and the working directory being the directory we're currently in. And 1 dot here by itself means our current directory. So for example, if we were to type ls dot slash or just dot, it's the same thing as just doing an ls because we're in the same directory. So this is, remember, this is just a basic introduction to the shell. We'll get an opportunity to play with a lot of stuff later. But the commands that I want you to remember for now are going to be ls, cd, that, and also if you tell the shell to cd with no arguments, it will cd up a directory. So that's what happened here. So we'll cd back into our example directory. And then the make directory, or mkdir. So we'll play with that again. We'll make nested example directory. And it's worth mentioning when you type a command here, in case you don't know, for example, I'll type ls, you send the command to the interpreter by pushing enter. So if you just type a command and you don't push enter, nothing's actually going to happen. So like I said, this is a brief overview. The most important commands to remember are this ls, cd, mkdir, and then the man page, or the manual command. So you can see the man page for any other type of command. For example, we'll look at the manual for cd. Oh, cd doesn't have a manual. That's weird. Let's look at the man page for touch. Touch, change the file timestamp. Update the access and modification times to each file and the current time. Yep, so that is the introduction to the shell. We'll dive a little deeper into what we can do in the shell, how we can interact with files. Oh, actually, before we end this video, there's another thing I want to show you. In Windows, you have what is called a shortcut. And that's basically you can like create a shortcut and place it on your desktop. The equivalent in Linux is what is called a link. And in order to create a link, you'll use the ln command. And you see it complained because we didn't give it any options. But here, let's take a quick look at the man page for ln. Make links between files. You give it the target where you want the link to be, and then the link name. So let's play with that quickly. Let's see what files we have here. Let's do ln nested directory, and we'll call it this is our link. Oh, and it's worth mentioning, in order to create a link for a directory, you have to do what is called a symbolic link. And we can get a little more into the difference between a symbolic link and a hard link a little later. But just for the sake of this exercise, I'll create a symbolic link. And if we do an ls -l, and ls-l lists everything in a nice list instead of in a formatted list, basically. And so you can see we just created our link file here. And in Linux, you'll always have an arrow pointing to the actual file that the link is pointing to. It's kind of like a pointer. Yeah, so I'm sure that was probably a lot to digest for this video. We'll go ahead and end this here, and then we'll come back a little later and we'll do some more interesting things with the terminal. Thank you, and bye-bye.